One of the great things about being an entrepreneur is that you hear some really wild and woolly stories. They say starting a mentoring business is expensive. And I had to stop in my tracks just for a second and sort of reflect back on where am I with my mentoring business. And I found about 7 ideas that I would share with you in response to that statement. And I've made some notes here, and I'm just going to go through them and round out what I would say is my response to that statement. So the first thing that I would share is, like starting any business, there are expenses. And depending on what kind of business they are, there are the sort of set expenses that would be similar for if you're starting a business A versus a business B. Now, for a mentoring business, you can start from home, and then if you want to expand out from there and get an office, that's okay. But from a mentoring point of view, computer, Zoom, the basic requirements, you've got are nailed, because mentoring is actually coming from your head and heart as you're sharing it, as the mentee's asking you questions. So very much a low equipment costs associated with starting a mentoring business. There is one thing I would certainly encourage you to do if you're starting a mentoring business, and that is to get certification in mentoring. Understand the practice of mentoring, what it means to be competent as a mentor, and understand the presence of mentorship. And the reason I say that is it is great, if not most useful, that you build a baseline understanding of mentoring, so that when you go to do your work, you feel as though you've got something solid underneath you to share from. You've got the basic concepts and practices necessary to move forward. And I give a shout out, and yes, I'm a founder of it. It's the International Mentoring Community. And we offer certification at the recognition level, achievement level, and competence level. And we have developed an extension of the competence certification that we call the Journey Mentor. And each one of them is nested in each other for the purposes of, you start with the recognition, which builds the baseline. You can then move into achievement, which is to get the concepts really set in your being. And then the competence is to ensure you've got the practices, and Journey Mentor is taking it out into some special situations. So those are 2 things. 1, there is a low equipment cost, and 2, I would advise you do spend a little bit of money for your certification. The third one comes from the fact that, I sort of mentioned already, is that the content for mentoring comes from your lived experience. So you could look at it and go, well, how much did I pay to get the lived experience that I have to be able to roll out this business? And that's something that you would have to take a look at and see if that is on the expensive side of this story that's unfolding. Here's the fourth one, and I appreciate this one, because from a mentoring business point of view, it's not like everyone knows about it like coaching business. And therefore, there will be probably some extra marketing costs that you're going to have to put out to make this all happen for you. But yet there are techniques that are available to you. And one in particular is that as you get to know others who might be mentoring, and through the international mentoring community, for example, why don't you band together and have conversations about how to get the story of mentoring out into the world, so people recognize that there is a business for mentoring, because there is a mentoring marketplace that is opening up, and people see value in mentoring and will pay good money for that. So there is this, on the flip side, the revenue that's going to come from the marketing that you do. There's another interesting point that I'd share, and that is to set aside some transition funds if you're moving from employee to entrepreneur. Now that goes for any kind of business that you're setting up. With mentoring, I'll mention it again, because you don't necessarily want to jump from one to the other. And if I may, from personal experience, that's what I did. And it was a rough couple of years in there, having made that jump from an employee to declaring that I have my mentoring shingle and consulting shingle, and I'm putting it out there. So if anything I can share right now, make sure if you're moving from employee to entrepreneur, you have some transition funds set aside, or it will be expensive. Another way where it can become expensive for you is when you listen to the stories of others who, in their own ways, thinking that they're helping you to really check into, do you really want to be a mentor? And you know that it's a lot of hard work, and they're attempting to sort of not necessarily bust your dreams, but they seem to almost in their own way is sort of pull you back a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And that can get expensive. Now, maybe not so much from a money point of view, but from a friendship point of view, and maybe even sort of the heart tugs that might come out, that you might start even questioning where you're going with this entrepreneurial business. So really stay alert to the expense that might come from good-hearted people, your friends, your family, who are trying to suggest that maybe you want to take it easy on starting a business and build up more of your own money for the transition that I just mentioned, but also just check out, do you really want to become an entrepreneur? Isn't it a lot of work? Isn't it expensive? I think you know where I'm going with this. And I think the last piece that I would give to you sort of rolls together a lot of what we're talking about here, almost, back to front, is truly understand what it means to be an entrepreneur before you do jump into it. Because it can be an expensive life, not just from a money point of view, but also effort and the time that you give to it. And especially make sure that you understand what it means to start a mentoring business and find out if it does align with your head, heart, and hands. And with that, I'm hoping I'm countering when you might hear that statement. They say starting a mentoring business is expensive. Yeah, there's expenses, and like any other business, there are many ways in which the business will benefit you and that you will be able to be of service to others who could really enjoy, take in your perspective as a mentor for the questions that they bring to you. And when you hear people say something like starting a mentoring business is expensive, there's an element of truth there that I've shared in some of the points I've made. Yet I believe that that expense is a great way to invest in who you are. But also, if you've got the family that's around you, make sure that you understand about that transition money. Get them to understand what it means to move into being an entrepreneur and starting a business. And really, deep down in yourself, really get to know if being an entrepreneur is how you want to serve the world, to be for the world.